I'm Scott Allen Miller, and we are going live on Thursday on the early side because we've had a lot of technical issues in the past, and I want to take this opportunity to test out the equipment. We did a new update to the Atom Control software and a firmware update to the control board itself. TJ and I did a test last week after we had problems early on and couldn't come up with any problems with the Blackmagic board or broadcasting over OBS. So we have no idea what was going on, so we are testing things right now to see how likely we are to have problems for tonight's show. So as you can see from the title, this is testing for tonight's stream and not the actual event itself, but giving it a try and saying hello to everyone. And we're going to make a quick announcement that I don't know when we're going to be able to do tonight's stream. It's going to be late. That's one thing I know. It's already 3:45, so normally we would be starting in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But I'm about to run to the beach, and I'm meeting up with a friend that I have not seen in over a decade. And so I will need to get home from that before we can actually do tonight's live stream. So tonight's live stream is going to start quite late, but we do get a little while to hang out and do a little one ahead of time and hopefully see how well things are working. At the moment, everything says that it's working fine. Yeah, thanks, A number one. Yeah, my stuff says everything is good at this point. So I have a pretty strong feeling that the issue is that there is a ton of traffic on Thursday evenings that have just caused problems because it seems to be time frame related, but I'm going to try it out as best I can with as much time as I can so we can be ready. And I'm going to type in here for those who don't see it. This is a test run. The real live stream is going to be on the late side tonight. I can't predict the actual time. Everybody gets to hear my ASMR of my keyboard there a bit. But also, because I have to start late tonight, I didn't want to leave everything up to chance with like not having things hooked up and ready to go. So the monitor's ready, the camera is ready, the Blackmagic is ready, everything's ready. So it should be boom, boom, boom. And anything I need to correct, like the lights are already in place. I don't have that one on, but I've got things like in place and ready to go. And hey, Tom. Yep. Bruce, I saw the 10-day forecast for Leon. Amazing. I've not seen the 10-day forecast, but it's Leon. The weather's always amazing. I'm going to look that up. I want to see what it is. What is the forecast for Leon, Nicaragua? Are you sure it was Leon, Nicaragua? Not Leon, Guanajuato or Leon, España. All things you have to watch out for. Actually, I don't know how to find. Oh, I forgot to say Nicaragua. No wonder it didn't come up. There we go. All right. Currently 34 degrees. Feels like 36. That's warm. Wait, that can't be. That makes no sense. I was just outside. Like, it's pleasant. How does it feel like 36? But we're going to be dropping, it looks like, this evening down to 25 and during the night down to 23. And we are going to be, for the entire week, hovering between 23, I'm sorry, 22. 22 is the low and going as high as 37 throughout the week. That is the whole week, and we've got mainly clear, mainly clear, partly cloudy. Wednesday, partly cloudy and humid. That's Christmas Day. Thunderstorm on Boxing Day, day after Christmas. And then on the 28th, we're looking at humid with a bit of evening rain. How far is Leon from the beach? So where I'm at on the edge of Leon, I'm on the beach side of Leon, 12 minutes. If you're coming from downtown Leon, figure 20, 22 minutes. By car, it's 17 kilometers, but it moves really slowly. So if you had no traffic and no dogs in the road and no horses in the road, you could just put the pedal down. You'd be out there in like 9 minutes, but you can't. Not at all. So realistically, from the edge of town, I think it's like 13 kilometers or so. We can be there in 12 minutes, like to the beach, like out on the beach. And from downtown, figure around about 20 minutes. So it's pretty close. Now it's weird. We're going to be hitting a possible high of 99. this week. Now I'm leaving, right? But Texas is hot. I would not have guessed that it was hot at all. Like, I've been outside, and like if you're standing in the sun, you're like, it's warm. And otherwise, like, it's really nice. I don't know. I am so thrown off by temperatures now. I am not looking forward to New York in a couple of weeks. It's going to be too much. Too much. Hey, we got 6 people on at 3:44. Not bad. With absolutely no warning. Bruce says, going to Cartagena for 2 months, mid-January, then on to Nicaragua for your first visit. Well, congratulations on all of that. That sounds amazing. 2 months in Caribbean, Colombia. Actually, it's going to be really nice, right? You're going to put in that time in Colombia. Then by the time you get to Nicaragua, you'll have adjusted because they're like the same temperatures as us. Colombia is cooler than us mostly, but not Cartagena. That's rather warm. They're at sea level there in the water. So very cool. Checking my messages. OBS. Hey, TJ. No, we're on the Blackmagic. So there was an update to the control software, but there's also an update to the firmware. I don't know how far the firmware was out of date. It doesn't tell you. But it did a firmware update, and so I wanted to test this first because this is handier, and I had to get it ready quickly. So at the moment, this is the Blackmagic humming right along. What is everyone doing for Christmas? Anybody traveling? I am. Oh my gosh, my upcoming schedule. Oh, tonight visiting friends before doing the actual live stream. And I'm literally watching my messages for them. So I may have to leave at any minute, or I may have a little while. And getting my kids fed right now. And tomorrow, Marcella's kids are coming out here because Saturday we have a quince that they're going to be attending, and so they need to get here. I just recorded an episode. We're going to talk about this on the live stream tonight, and we'll talk about this on some videos. But we've got a video that I think is coming out maybe on the 26th, the drive across Managua, and I'm going to mention it in there for the people who hang out a while, but we have just a few people on here for now. So Marcella has been in the hospital more or less for the last 2 to 3 months, and has been sick for about 6, like noticeably sick for 6, maybe quite a bit longer. And so she is in very rough shape. She can't come out here for the quince that her kids are going to, so we're watching them. I may see her briefly on Sunday. Saturday is the quince. Sunday I am flying. I'm going to Managua to stage by the airport with my family. Monday morning early, we're getting on the plane to Houston, where we will be for a week and a half, more than a week. I have my license stuff scheduled. So in theory, we'll be able to get the license done. Both my wife and I will get our new licenses, our renewals. They're just renewals. It's not like we don't have a license, but it's expired and we can't get a new one remotely because it's the 16-year renewal. So dealing with that, and then flying to New York and seeing my dad, and coming back here I'll be back on the 10th. So if I manage to pull off the live streams in the next couple weeks, they will be from the U.S. I have no idea how I do that. I'll probably be able to do that from New York because I'll have all the new cameras there. There's already a new Sony ZV-1F waiting for me, in white, of course, and the DJI Pocket 3 is supposed to be arriving there in a week. Has not actually shipped from China yet, so we'll see. But that is what's supposed to be happening, and Livestream is still registering as perfectly good. Everything is thumbs up, so fingers crossed that we're good for later. But we're collecting good data, and then I'll be back. Cartagena OBS, going to Amsterdam starting tomorrow for a week. Very nice. So Christmas in the Netherlands has got to be pretty cool. Bruce says probably going to watch the live stream afterwards. Have a great show from BC. Thanks, Bruce. Yeah, hopefully. Well, I want to hang out with my friends because this is my high school friend. I'm hoping to get her on the show. We've been friends for 35 years, right? We met in 1990 and took Spanish together. and she's moving down the street, and she's literally on the beach right now at, checking out her place that's next door to me. Kind of. Ben says, hey, Scott, do you know why my Wi-Fi access points got flagged on entry? Seems odd to me. Yes, all networking gear must be declared because it has to go through telecom control. There's a tax on telecom equipment. It's like a tariff, same as the U.S. It's just, different countries have taxes on different things. Anything that goes through telecom control, they check to make sure that it's real. It's hard for customs to determine which things are legitimately telecom and which things are not. And so they go through a second inspection. And because of that secondary inspection, there's a fee. It's not a big one. It's not a big deal. And they're completely allowed. There's no problem. But if you're bringing in a router, a switch, an access point, anything that's networking gear, a regular computer should be okay. But anything that's networking gear, and I've done this and I've been flagged, it's expected. You're not in trouble. Not bad, but it's supposed to be declared, and it is an import. That's considered a non-tourist import, and I understand that Wi-Fi APs are something I travel with sometimes as a tourist, so that's not exactly a legitimate guide per se, but for most people, it's not a tourist thing. It is actually an import. They're bringing them in to leave them. And one of the reasons that they're very strict about it is that if you are an actual importer, like a business that imports, all of the businesses in Nicaragua have to pay these tariffs on the equipment. And if they let you come in without doing that, it bypasses their import tariff and completely undermines both faith in the government because they're taxing locals and not foreigners, but also it means it's not competitive. So what could happen, and this doesn't because they look for this, is that people like me who travel in and out all the time could go to the U.S. and constantly buy a few access points and bring them into the country. And I could easily set up a small shop that is just selling access points. And that may sound absurd, that how could that be worth it? But even the biggest shops in the country struggle to get enough access points. So we're always like, I've had some access points on back order for over a year because I want specific ones. But that's how hard it is for places to sometimes get supplies, that at least the specific ones. There's always something. And so if I could bring them in, I could get a supply chain going that bypasses the tax and tariff system and completely destroys the local businesses and operates tax-free as an expat who has access to fly to other countries. And it may sound like, well, how could you possibly make enough money to make that worth it? Obviously, the flight would destroy the value of doing that. And that completely makes sense, except for the fact that I fly back and forth for other reasons. And so people like me who are going back and forth quite commonly, which are often expats or immigrants, very commonly have access to enough luggage space that's not being used that we could fly devastating amounts of import bypass products into the country, and absolutely devastate local businesses that have to pay their taxes. So it's very important for them to tax everyone equally and not allow the idea of, but I'm just a tourist and just bypassing this one time, to be a workaround. Because if you were to look at the U.S. and say, how often could you do that into the U.S., even a concerted effort, it would take an unbelievable amount of effort to have enough of any product like that going into the U.S. to offset the amount of import that comes into the U.S., right? It's just the percentage of people going over the border is way too small. It doesn't work. But when you're looking at a place like Nicaragua, the percentage of the population that could do that is really large. And so in the U.S., they still try to not let that happen, but the scale of it is very tiny, and so they can mostly overlook it, and even the businesses are like, whatever, it doesn't really impact us. But here, even one person doing that on a semi-regular basis could cause local businesses to go out of business based on it. Their margins are so tight. So that's why. So it's not a big deal. You just have to go to, I don't know their name, but the telecom department, and they inspect the stuff and just give you a sticker and charge you a small fee for it on top of the import fee. So that's why they do it that way. And I'm aware of this stuff. If you're ever wondering, like, why do you know this? It's because I would like to set up a store selling this stuff. It's hard to get that stuff here. And I'd like to have a store. And so I look at it from all angles, right? How do I get it in myself? Ooh, I could just put it in my luggage. I've done that. Oh, I had to pay tariffs. Like, I know the process because I got flagged. Okay, so I know that piece. But as a person who can import and has businesses and can sell things, oh, if I import, I have to go through these channels and pay these things. Oh, if someone else was allowed to go through the airport like me, but didn't get flagged, they would be able to go to a store like mine and sell it for less than I can buy it for and undercut me and both screw me over as a business person investing in the country and screw over the people of Nicaragua because they're not getting their tax revenue. Everyone loses except for someone who's flying in over the border and bypassing their tariffs. And then it becomes really obvious when you are on both sides and it's like you're the one who would be impacted by someone doing that. Then you're like, oh yeah, no, I'd be really upset if I invested, $20,000 to set up a small shop to sell these things, and then someone who wasn't paying their taxes was able to put me out of business, and it would be basically guaranteed. You could undercut me by 10, 20%. It's the same reason that if you're a restaurant or any kind of business like that, and one of your neighbors isn't paying minimum wage or is not paying their employment taxes or whatever, and you're a legitimate business that's doing things, you have a really strong incentive to be like, hey, that restaurant's prices are artificially low, stealing my customers by stealing from the Nicaraguan people and stealing from me. Both. And it's not like theoretical theft. It is outright theft. Right. And so it's like, oh my gosh, I'm the victim, along with all the people. Their workers are victims because they're not being paid their fair wage. The Nicaraguan people are victims because they're not getting their tax revenue. And I'm a victim because they're running an illegal business to steal my customers. Right. Because if I wasn't here, if they had no competition, they wouldn't do that. They would raise their prices and just be more expensive. But we keep their prices down. But every customer that they get is stolen from us because they're able to make it cheaper by not paying their bills. So it's it's things that you notice how much more acute that is when you run businesses and know you have neighbors that are doing those things or know people that are doing those things. Then and when it's so much more difficult to survive as a business. That when someone does that, it's a very real possibility that it'll put you out of business. It's not like in the US where generally when that happens, you're like, hey, I'm not as profitable as I should be. And this guy at my country club is all rich and bragging about all the money he makes, and he's doing it by kind of stealing some of that from me. That makes me feel upset, but it's probably not putting you out of business. Brent's here. Hey, Brent, you did not get flagged. You are able to post. And so it's much more acute in these situations because you're like, wow, the way that it works is if you're willing to come in and steal a little bit as like a restaurant, right? And so this is a real thing we see happen. Expats will come in and run illegal businesses. They'll move into a small market and make a real nice restaurant, not pay their employees. They'll run for like a year, and the Rad Pad market was a lot like this, right? They tried the same kind of thing. This is where they got in trouble. You come in and you say, I'm going to hire people at one promised rate, and then when it comes time to pay them, just extort them. Well, do you want to get paid? I'm going to pay you less. You can take that or take nothing, right? And they're poor. What are they going to do? They can't afford a lawyer. They can't afford. So they take it, and they'll probably sue you later, but that's later. And so you get this lower cost, and then you don't pay your taxes, and you'll probably get in trouble for that, but probably not until later. And if you do that, you can run all your competitors out of business and take all their business. And you could use that to threaten everyone. Oh, you don't want to work for me? Who are you going to work for? They're all going out of business. I'm the only employer in town. This is as much as you can make here. So they lower the wages by not paying what they promise and not paying what's legally mandated, and they're able to lower their prices and do that stuff until everyone goes out of business. Once everyone goes out of business and they're the only game in town, then they can raise the prices on the menu, but now they have all the leverage, and they tell anyone, hey, you report us to the government, we're going to fire everyone here, we'll just pack up and leave. And then what are you going to do? No one's going to get paid, and then they really can extort you. And no one wants to start up because now not only do they have an existing business that people know, but they have deeper pockets because they've stolen it from everywhere. Now the government's still going to come after them for the taxes, but now they have all this leverage. They're making all this money. They're rolling in, and so if the government's like, hey, you got to owe us lots of taxes, they're like, oh, I didn't know. Either they skip town and steal the taxes, or they just pay the taxes or negotiate a lower rate because the government needs to get their money, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we owe a whole bunch. We only have this much. And so it's a real tried and true way to steal from other businesses. And so it's really critical for workers in a community or other businesses in a community to whistleblow, because the system naturally makes it extremely difficult if they don't get caught. Luckily, in Nicaragua, getting caught is pretty rough because workers have a lot of rights and the tax system has a lot of power. And so it does make it more scary to try to do that kind of business, but people still do. And it is at times quite effective, often if the people have been around for a long time or try to gain connections or whatever. Ben says, awesome, thank you for that. How about that poor chap next to me who brought in a couple of guitars? He was charged like $500 US to get them back. Yeah. So guitars are like... So here's the thing, right? If you go into any country, is the stuff you're bringing legitimately tourist stuff, or isn't it? And sometimes there's these gray areas, like your Wi-Fi units. There's times that I'm like, I don't trust the Wi-Fi in the apartment I've rented. I'm bringing my own Wi-Fi. There's times that I'm like, I just really want to have a guitar with me, so I'm bringing in a couple guitars. But let's be fair, most of the time that you're bringing in a guitar, it's because you're planning on busking or performing or doing something, right? And no matter what, it's difficult to, especially a couple of guitars, unless he could show that he had gigs lined up and a permit for working in the country and paying his taxes. Bringing in guitars looks like non-touristy stuff that you're bringing in that you could sell, or that you're going to try busking. And in both of those cases, that's an import that needs to be taxed. So it's possible that he was bringing in guitars and it's just he's on vacation and he has to have two guitars to perform, to practice every day. I was a professional guitarist. I get that. I have never once, as a professional musician, flown with my instruments for the purpose of practice, however. And I was a professional musician for like 15 years. So it's an extreme case, but it's legit. That could be the case. It's definitely an edge case, right? The expectation is if you're bringing in a couple guitars, you're importing guitars. We keep telling people, right? If you're a tourist anywhere, this is general tourist stuff. This is not a Nicaragua thing. Nicaragua is harder on this stuff than many countries, so a lot of people learn it here because everything in Nicaragua is so easy. People tend to forget that the aduana or customs is on the hard side. Even I brought in cookies from Argentina, no problems. They had to inspect every single cookie's expiration date. Think about that. That's a lot. That's a lot going on, right? For that process, right? Now, they didn't charge us a single penny. They didn't give us a single hassle. The look on their faces when we went through the X-ray girl goes, "Cookies?" We're like, yes, they are. So pretty crazy, but that's how things need to work, right? So pretty wild overall. But so things like the guitars, it's a tough one, and they just have to make a judgment call. Do they think that the guitars are legitimately a tourist item and this is just you're going to practice, or are they reasonably going to be sold, in which case you're not in trouble. It's just that he has to pay the import on them, which is hefty. If he went through an import process to bring them in where he wasn't doing it at the airport, then the fees are much less. And that's one of the things they really want to encourage people to do. Absolutely import things, but there are fees that have to be paid, and they need to go through, if possible, a point of entry where it's meant to handle that, not a fallback like the airport. And honestly, this is what the U.S. is going to be like, right? If universal tariffs start to go into place, then all the borders have to do the same kind of thing, because that's where the tax revenue comes from. And so we're used to in North America having very minor import duties, so the ability to bring things in at the airport is relatively high. Here in Nicaragua, there is quite a bit of import duty, so they lock down the aduana quite a bit. But the U.S. is talking about going to a system much more strenuous than the one here. So the expectation is that these things are going to escalate in the U.S. rapidly, because the moment that tariff-based taxation gets proposed, let alone put in place, everybody who's in a position to have to pay that is going to be doing everything they can to ensure that everybody is blocked from working around that system, because otherwise that money's being directly stolen from those players. So they will. So think about the guitar shops here in country. Same thing. They really don't want someone bringing in guitars with any possibility of them selling them. Hold on. Okay, my friend is heading, so I've just got a few minutes, but I've got to get my wife back here to take her. All right. So that's really what's going on in those cases. That's what's going on in their head. That's why the rules are the way they are. Sometimes it's applied kind of arbitrarily. That's difficult because it really is it depends on who you get. It depends on what you're doing. Henry says, Scott, enjoy the holidays. Thanks, Henry. I'm looking forward to it, although it's super hectic leading up to it. I really haven't thought about them at all. Like, oh my gosh. Larry says, I was ready to hire a private plane to return to the mainland. Then I found out I can access your YouTube and watch your live stream. Don't want to miss an episode with my high-level membership. Larry is one of Larry would like to remind everyone about our membership program. You can click that join button and join our community here. And for A1, A number one, who has not yet gotten into Nica Habla. A1, have you signed up for Nica Habla? Send me your account name and I can add you. If not, we need to figure out how to get you into the system. MS is here. I'm curious. My mother recently passed away and she has beautiful handmade jewelry. I've given most of it away, but I want to bring some with me to give away as gifts. Best way to pack it. Package that has gifts. That's a little bit tough. So it depends how much it is, obviously. It depends what it is. Obviously, you can wear it. Obviously, you can, it's not new jewelry. It's not like in boxes and stuff. So legitimately, people travel with jewelry to some reasonable level of it. Anything you can wear, that's going to... anything you can wear, anything that's like normal luggage probably makes sense. If you're bringing in a large amount, you could use a air freight service because it's not going to be super heavy to bring it in. But I'd be worried about that stuff because things could get lost. Normally we do that for things from Amazon or whatever, where, okay, my whatever thing didn't make it. But if it's something important, I'd be wary of doing that. Normally nostalgic items that we care about, we hand deliver, but there's always the risk that you're going to go through customs or whatever. So it's, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. I think just in your luggage. You want to keep it on your person. You may have to declare it. Because obviously jewelry could be more than $10,000, and jewelry is a form of currency. It's used worldwide as a wealth transfer mechanism. So be very cognizant of knowing how much value. Are you moving like a few $100s of jewelry, like it's handmade but it's not like platinum or anything? That's one thing. Or do you have tons of like super expensive jewels in there and you're actually transferring a lot of wealth around? You're gonna have to be very aware that you're moving potentially a lot of money all at once. So that is the way to think of it. That's about all I can tell you. There's only so many mechanisms of getting things here, right? You can bring it in your luggage and then you keep an eye on it. And obviously put it in the luggage you're carrying, not your packed luggage. Hold on, I'm going to grab the dog. You can ship by air freight, so like Envios Fast Track Air, and you can ship by boat. Definitely don't do that, right? Envios Fast Track Maritime, which takes a lot longer, is way cheaper. When I'm shipping heavy-ish things or things that I don't need, like I'm about to place an order, I need some cables, and I want them to be color coordinated. So I'm ordering some color coordinated cables from the US, like XLR cables, like microphone cables, like the bigger ones, and they're heavy because they're cables. So I'm going to order a number of cables, some chargers, like real basic stuff, things that would never get flagged anywhere. But they're going to go in a box and weigh several pounds, like easily 10 pounds, right? Because I'm going to get more than one. And then I'll send that by maritime because I don't care how fast my cables get here and they're not going to go bad. And if they fall off the ship for some reason, I can always order more. They don't matter if they get lost or anything, right? Like, so that's the way that I would do that stuff. That's why we have that maritime stuff. That's why it's a big deal. But if it's more important, I tend to ship by air because I want to have it in my hands and know that nothing went wrong pretty quickly. And if it's really important, if it's nostalgic, I never let it leave my possession. So MS says all handmade, no jewels, but they're beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. So if it's all handmade and no jewels, probably no problem just bringing it. Especially if you can make a reasonable like impression that they're yours and you're wearing them, and that's stuff that you would wear and you like to wear them when you go out or whatever. It's probably no problem at all. Same as like you bring in like some extra clothes with you. Of course you can bring extra clothes with you, right? But should you bring cargo containers full of clothing, obviously they're going to be like, you're not wearing this on your vacation. Volume is a big thing. That's one of the biggest things here is volume. Most things at a very small amount are ignored and things at large amount are not. So the guitar question actually, had it been one guitar, would have been probably a very different scenario than two guitars, right? Two guitars means the chances that one of them is going to stay behind is much higher. The chances that you're planning on performing is much higher. So that's the flags you. And I know, like, you can wear a face mask, but if you ship a box of face masks, and I know someone who did this, right, it gets flagged as importing medical gear, which is what it is. And of course you're allowed to import masks, but there are fees for medical gear. And so you have to be aware of that and go through a thing. And it ended up being far more to import the goods than it was to acquire them wherever they had come from. So generally don't want to do that. But obviously with that, you want to carry it in. All right, so I'm going to be taking off from here pretty quickly. And hoping to do the actual honest-to-goodness live stream sometime this evening. I'm going to be getting to dinner somewhere around 5 p.m. Going to be there for a few hours, but they're staying some distance away, so they don't want to be out super late or anything. So the live stream is definitely going to be hours later than normal, but we have this extra half an hour on here to kind of make up for it. So looking forward to seeing all you guys later tonight. Hopefully I'm able to do it. Like, my daughter made the video. Everything's hooked up to go. This has had not one blip, according to the monitor, since we started. So this is all very encouraging. But I do know that starting at about 5, in about an hour here, it's the busy time of the evening for the internet. It's when everyone is uploading and playing video games. And so the whole network gets hit hard. And so last week we tested after it had problems, and after, I don't know, maybe TJ remembers, after maybe 10:30, we tested for over 2 hours. Not one blip at that point. It was just during this really busy period. So we just don't know. So we're testing a bunch of things, trying to narrow down where the problems might be. But hopefully we'll be able to get on later and have a good live stream. MS says all handmade. Ben says, happy holidays to you and your family. Scott, you demand, missing your cap. Thank you very much, Ben. Happy holidays, everybody. Hopefully I'll see you in a few hours. And I'm off to dinner.